Ladies and gentlegrams, the gentle degenerate gentrifying the genre of hip-hop, Brianna couldn't get Kendrick and the Clipse stopped from dropping Verse of the Year. Half of it's here, from a preview at the Clipse's album premiere. Now, if you don't know why this Kendrick verse had such anticipation, then we will break down the entire situation surrounding Samurai siblings King Kung Fu Kenny and the Canadian Katy Perry, and break down the bars of this boogeyman banger, Kendrick giving gifts like Christmas, but it's not merry, it's malicious. Kendrick's loading the clips and pushing the T. So let's break his bars down surgically, but firstly, smash the like and subscribe buttons like urinals to pee. Now, lobbies and gentlegrams,
I study rap battles for a living.
This song was years in the making, alright? We're gonna break down the entire history of this song that dates back to 2023. We're gonna take a look at some shots that Pusha T was sending subliminally at Brianna in 2022, and of course we're gonna break down in full everything that we've already heard from this Kendrick verse that's about to be on this Clipse album. The craziest part is that we haven't even heard the craziest part of this Kendrick verse yet. This is when I say $1 million verse, I mean that quite literally. I mean, Pusha T literally had to pay $1 million in order to get this verse heard to the world. Now, it all started on June 20th, 2023 at Pharrell Williams' Louis Vuitton Menswear Spring-Summer 2024 fashion show in Paris. This is where the Clipse premiered their brand new reunion song, Chains and Whips. The craziest part is the two brothers premiered this song almost 2 years ago to this day. Even more ironically, the two brothers premiered this song 2 years and 2 days ago today. But back then, there were only two verses on this song. Now we find out there is three. The third one being the tiny Tupac twin, the short-statured, sharp-shooting samurai assassin King Kung Fu Kenny Lamar. And while it may have been anticipated that he was taking shots in his verse at Brianna the Marilyn Monroe v-ho, he wasn't the only one dissing on this track. Pusha T was also sending some clips at the man who has now sparked debate if he is more relevant than Nas in 2025, none other than Jim Jones. I know Jim Jones has some nice work from the early 2000s with Dipset and all that. We Fly High, that's a dope song and all. But let's be real, in the 2010s, the only thing we heard about Jim Jones was him being tied into the 6ix9ine RICO trial. And now in 2025, his behavior is very adjacent to 6ix9ine. He's trolling the hell out of very respected rappers like Nas and of course Pusha T, and Pusha T had responded to his trolls in this Whips and Chain song rapping, "You run from the spirit of repossession," because in 2019 it was reported that Jim Jones had lost his mansion in New Jersey to foreclosure after defaulting on mortgage payments since 2010. According to a lawsuit at the time, Jim Jones and his partner owed over $1.2 million on their mortgage. So the first bar of this song, Pusha's calling out the fact that Jim Jones's crap is getting repossessed. He then calls out the fact that Jim Jones has made more appearances in Love and Hip Hop and other reality TV shows than he has in an actual recording studio over the last few years, rapping reality TV is mud wrestling, some signed checks I know better than, beware of my name, that there is delegate, you know I know where you're delicate, crush you to pieces, I home a breath of it. Then these bars are important. He raps, "I'm watching your fame escape relevance, we're all in the room but here's the elephant. You're chasing a feature out of your element." And that's because Jim Jones over the last few years has done a lot of Drake glazing.
Where does Drake stand in hip-hop history?
I would say he's the greatest of all times. The relevancy that he keeps showing year after year, hit after hit, record after record. Any record that he has put out has seemed to go multiple platinum. Like, that's never has happened before.
Notice how Jim Jones points to Drake's relevance, and here Pusha T is rapping, "I'm watching your fame escape relevance, and you're chasing a feature out of your element." Because Jim Jones doing all this Drake glazing obviously is for a feature, it's for a look, it's for a cosign, it's for something. Meanwhile, while he's calling Drake the greatest of all time, this is what Jim Jones had to say about Pusha T's legacy.
NBA Youngboy before Pusha T.
And when Pusha T's asked about why he dissed Jim Jones, as you guys know, Pusha is not one to hold back, and he made his reasoning very clear, saying, "I personally never understood what the interviews were about or why my name kept coming up. It's one thing to keep saying I'm not a top 50 MC, but it's another thing for you not to say that you yourself are one. No one asked me about a top 50 nothing. After about the third interview, I promise you, I said, man, he must really want me to know what he thinks about me. And that's how my verse came about. This is what I really think about him. Every line is my true heart. Now, in that same interview, we got a bombshell of a breakdown in terms of how the Clipse landed Kendrick Lamar on this same song. Again, we're going to break down the entire verse, but honestly, I think the backstory to this is more interesting. This is one of the most insane behind-the-scenes music industry stories within hip-hop of the last 5 years. So, you know how I said before, this song was previewed 2 years and 2 days ago, in June of 2023, right? The Clipse have been cooking up this album for years at this point, so much so to the point where it was actually ready to release last summer, except for one feature verse that they've been waiting on, which is still kept the mystery right now. I personally believe it's Jay-Z, because if you guys break it down, I think the last Jay-Z verse we heard was on a Pusha T record in 2022. I could be wrong, correct me in the comments. But with Jay-Z being a very frequent recent collaborator of Pusha T's, and with the news that we will break down that has to do with this Kendrick verse, it makes sense that this mysterious feature on the Clipse album might be Jay-Z. But anyways, yeah, this Clipse album has been completed since last summer. So in this interview, they say, if you expected the album last summer, the brothers, Malice and Pusha T, sympathize. They also expected it last summer. Pusha says they felt confident, proud, and assured of themselves when they presented the music to their record label Def Jam. The label loved what they heard, except for Kendrick Lamar's guest verse on the thunderous Chains and Whips, the final version of the song that Pharrell teased at his first Louis Vuitton runway show, and the song that Pusha says was the first to come out of their Clipse sessions. Don't be fooled by Pusha's interviews appealing for one last guest verse and the Twitter jokes that he went to the GNX tour to physically walk Kendrick Lamar into the nearest studio. Kendrick's verse homework has been turned in for a while now. But after a summer of beef between their two biggest artists that resulted in a still ongoing lawsuit from Drake, Def Jam's parent company, UMG, blanched at the antagonistic optics of two of Drake's biggest enemies linking on wax. Pusha calls their apprehension stupid, primarily because none of the bars in Kendrick's otherwise excellent verse could really be perceived as a shot or even subliminal. It does, however, contain the stellar line, "Therapy taught me how to open up. It also showed me I don't give a F." And again, we're going to break down the whole Kendrick verse. Stay tuned for that. And we're also going to look at some tweets from some people who apparently heard the verse in full. And there might be a lot more to it than the snippet we heard. There might be a bigger reason why UMG was trying to censor out this verse. But as for why they censored this verse, Pusha can barely contain his disgust when he recounts how the stalemate with Def Jam played out. Pusha says they wanted me to ask Kendrick to censor his verse, which of course I was never doing. And then they wanted me to take the record off the album. And so, after a month of not doing it, Steve Gawley, one of the lawyers over at the record label, was like, let's just drop the Clipse from the record label. But that can't work because Pusha T is still there solo. But if they let both of us go, then maybe things could work out. And sure enough, Def Jam eventually agreed to release the Clipse and drop Pusha as a solo artist, freeing the duo to shop for a new home with a finished Clipse album and plenty more music in their pockets. Ultimately, Pusha says the endeavor was gratifying. It felt good to even see how other labels were buying for the project. Now, as they teased last week with a picture in front of the label's plain insignia, they've ended up at Jay-Z's Rock Nation, where they feel fully supported and energized. I think that synergy, just in the rap sense, is going to speak volumes, Pusha says of the partnership. So again, if you guys are wondering who the mystery verse on this project could be, keep in mind that the Clipse left Def Jam and they are now releasing the album on Jay-Z's Rock Nation label. And as far as the censoring goes, this wasn't the only time Pusha T experienced that, and it's all stemming back to the fact that he was beefing with UMG's petty petition prom queen padre, Drake. Earlier, when discussing Def Jam clutching their pearls over a Clipse and Kendrick record, Pusha said that it reminded him too much of 2018. Weighing in on Drake and Kendrick's ongoing feud, namely Drake's decision to sue UMG over releasing Not Like Us, Pusha elaborates on what he meant. I will say this, if Drake's adamant to have a lawsuit, it's only because he knows all the things they did to suppress everything that was happening around the time of the story of Adin when I dissed him, and the verses and the records and things that were happening back then. He alludes to instances in which, he says, labels had muddled, if not outright nixed, the release of verses in which Pusha T talked his crap next to people closely affiliated with Drake, as he did on Rick Ross and Lil Wayne's Maybach Music 6, and the Pop Smoke song with Young Thug. I don't rate Drake no more, Pusha T says. The suing thing is bigger than some rap stuff. I just don't rate you. Damn, it's like, it just kind of cheapens the art of it once we gotta have real questions about suing and litigation. Like what? For this? And along with Pusha T, his longtime manager Steven Victor had also elaborated in a Billboard interview that Pusha's exit from Def Jam was not a simple release, but it required a significant financial cost. He stated that they didn't drop the Clipse. They were like, pay us this money, which was an exorbitant amount of money, a crap ton of money, and we'll let you out of the deal. That's what happened. We paid them the money, an insane amount of money. It wasn't like $200,000. It was a lot of money for an artist to come up with. Victor noted that this buyout covered both the Clipse's albums and Pusha T's solo obligations, which included 3 albums that he owed to Def Jam, and Def Jam would still receive a percentage of Pusha T's future profits. Victor further explained that the label's objections stem from UMG's lyric review department, which is a department in the label that's intended to protect against copyright infringement lawsuits, but in this case, it was used here to scrutinize Kendrick's verse for potential issues related to Drake's lawsuit with UMG. Steven had said, UMG has this department where they review lyrics, so it was that department that looked at the Clipse album and that Kendrick verse. The real reason that department is there is to protect the artists and the labels from lawsuits for copyright infringement. It's not meant to be like, you said XYZ about XYZ artists, so we're not going to release this music. But we told the label, we're not going to ask Kendrick to change his verse. You guys are wrong. Stop looking at it this way. None of this makes any sense. So once I knew we had a deal in place with Def Jam to leave and pay them 7 figures, I got on the phone with Jay-Z and I said, this is what's happening. Of course, now we're getting this brand new Clipse album on July 11th, 2025 via Rock Nation, with the Kendrick verse fully uncensored nonetheless. Now, funny enough, as I was making this video, I was bumping Pusha T's last album, It's Almost Dry. Great project. You guys should check it out. Highly underrated. And on the song Dreaming of the Past, I hear these lyrics as I'm literally making the script of this video. And it's almost like just insane timing because I'm typing up how, Def Jam was trying to censor Kendrick's verse. And I hear Pusha say in the song something about being censored. Now, again, this song came out in 2022. After Pusha T was blocked from releasing a verse on Rick Ross's Maybach Music 6 in 2019 because he was dissing Drake on that verse, and because the song featured Drake's mentor, Lil Wayne, and his close collaborator, Rick Ross. And then, of course, also in 2020, he was dissing Drake on a Pop Smoke song called Paranoid, and UMG had told him to change the verse, so he said, F that, let me just take the verse completely off this project. So on this song in 2022, Dreaming of the Past, Pusha raps, not me, they try to censor and block me. You're hollering top 5, I only see top me. Award shows the only way you bees could rob me. Obviously here he's referencing the fact that behind the scenes Drake was doing everything he could after the Pusha T beef to censor Pusha T. And in terms of top 5, Pusha saying you're hollering top 5, I only see top me. Well, of course we know that not only does Drake have a little minion, a little gram gobbler by the name of top 5, but he's also been on record stating multiple times that he is in the top 5 all time. On his song Grammys, he said top 5, no debating, top 5, top 5, top 5. And then a year later on his song Galchester, he said, no, I said top 5, but I'm top 2 and I'm not 2. Keep in mind, he rapped that he's top 5, no debating on the song called Grammys. And in this song, Pusha is saying, you're hollering top 5, I only see top me. And the award shows are the only way you bees could rob me. The song that Drake's talking about being top 5 on is called Grammys. Here, Pusha's saying, award shows are the only way you bees could rob me. And on his diss against Drake, Infrared, he raps, I remember when Will Smith won the first Grammy and they ain't even recognized Hove until Annie. So I don't tap dance and sing Mammy because I'm supposed to juggle these flows and nose candy. Basically dismissing the legitimacy of award shows like the Grammy since it took Hove, Jay-Z, a long time to win an award, saying he's still at the top even though on Drake's Grammy record he's talking about being top 5, and saying the award shows which he sees no legitimacy in are the only way he could get robbed, because when he was performing in Toronto, fans tried to rush the stage and attack and rob him. So a lot of interconnected situations here, all from a verse from 2022 from Pusha T that everybody overlooked. But what we're most definitely not overlooking is this Kendrick verse on this Pusha T on this Clipse record. And we got a large chunk of it previewed today. So spoiler alert, we're going to break down every bar that we have heard so far. So the verse kicks off with Kendrick rapping, I'm not the candidate to vibe with. I don't F with the kumbaya stuff. All that talent must be God sent. I sent your ASS back to the cosmics. Now, Kumbaya is an African-American spiritual song which pleads God to help those in need. According to Genius, in more recent years, politicians have used the song's title to represent compromising in times of war. Kendrick himself also mentioned Kumbaya in Luther, saying, she a fan, he a flop, they just want a kumbaya. And here he's saying he doesn't F with the kumbaya stuff. Now there's a lot of religious imagery in this verse that we'll touch on as we get to it, but him first mentioning that he doesn't mess with the kumbaya, aka pleading with God to help those in need, to compromise during times of war, he doesn't mess with that. And then in the next part, he follows it up saying that talent must be God sent, but I send your butt back to the cosmics. God sent talent, that's a common expression, but here he's following up the God sent talent bar saying, I sent you back to the cosmics, aka he is the God of rap, and he's sending you and your talent back to where it came from. If it's God sent, you're getting sent back to the cosmics, back to outer space, back into the universe, away from Earth. And he continues the wordplay with the I bars, rapping, the things I seen under my eyelids, kaleidoscope dreams, murder, and sirens. Now, Kaleidoscope Dream is the name of a Miguel album, which Kendrick Lamar features on the song How Many Drinks remix. A kaleidoscope itself is a tube object where when you look into it, you kind of see like different patterns and shapes and reality kind of moving in this fragmented way, right? Kind of like the vision Kendrick has right now, where literally unlike that, he's telling you my temperament bipolar, I choose violence, which was the verse we heard right after the Mr. Morale album, where he talks about healing, the complete 180 of what he's talking about on his Like That verse, right? And on this song, he's talking about how therapy taught him to open up, but it also taught him he doesn't give a F, right? It's like a kaleidoscope dream. Everything is all over the place. Murder and sirens, as Kendrick says. Then he continues rapping, let's be clear, hip-hop died again. Half of my profits may go to Rakim. This is a very interesting bar for several reasons, right? Firstly, Rakim was known as the God MC. A couple bars before this, Kendrick is talking about that talent must be God sent, but I sent you back to the cosmics. And with him saying hip-hop died again, these mirror the sentiments and thoughts that he had in his Apple Music Super Bowl interview, where he talks about the intention behind his Like That verse and the entire Drake beef, where he says that he felt like competition and the conversation of hip-hop as a whole being very stagnant and dry in 2023, and he felt like he had to revitalize it. He's emphasizing that here, saying that hip-hop died again, and that the success that he's had in revitalizing it is owed to prophets, hip-hop prophets like Rakim. Prophets carrying a double meaning, as he's saying he's sending his profits, his money, to Rakim, but Rakim also being the God MC, the one who can revitalize hip-hop out of its death. He is the prophet. But at the same time, Rakim also sounds like rock him. He's saying hip-hop died just like he did on the song Watch the Party Die, where he draws the line in the sand between what separates him and the rest of the industry. And here he's saying, again, that hip-hop died and that half of his profits would go to rocking him. He is invested in rocking and destroying everything toxic within hip-hop. And he follows that up in the next bar, continuing the religious imagery, rapping, how many Judases done let me down, but F it, the West's mine, we're right now. First he's talking about the talent being God sent, then he's talking about prophets and Rakim, the God MC. Then he refers to Judas, who let him down, just like the biblical figure Judas, who is known for betraying Jesus. On Whacked Up Murals, he was talking about letting Lil Wayne down. Here he's referring to the Judases that let him down. A lot of people are speculating that this line was in reference to J. Cole. Of course, Cole, being a longtime friend and collaborator of Kendrick, letting him down with his whole, diss track and then deleting it a week later. J. Cole also having a song called False Prophets. But I think this is bigger than that. I think here he's referring to everybody who's let him down, right? He's saying that hip-hop died, right? Similar to how he was saying we gotta watch the party die. And this verse was recorded in a very similar time period to that Watch the Party Die song. And this is repeated imagery to what he rapped on Carti's album, saying the hate get realer, the love get fake. But when you're this great, that's how you should like it. Obviously being surrounded by a lot of hate, a lot of fake love, as he takes on this challenge of revitalizing hip-hop. The Judases let him down. He's betrayed. The hate gets realer, the love gets fake. But he concludes it rapping, the West is mine, we're right now. The West is up, most definitely. Then we get the best bar off of this verse where he raps, therapy showed me how to open up. It also showed me I don't give a F. And again, that was what a lot of people were pointing at when Kendrick first released Like That, the big change in his demeanor, in his entire thought process, right? On Mr. Morale, he's talking about, sorry I didn't save the world, I was too busy rebuilding mine. That album dealt with opening up about his past traumatic experiences, things he witnessed throughout his childhood, all the way up to the pain and suffering he caused others throughout his time navigating fame and stardom. He learned how to cope with his trauma and documented it on that project, so people were a little bit confused as to why his demeanor changed, or as he put it on Like That, his temperament was now bipolar and he chooses violence. Why the sudden shift, right? But he sums it up perfectly in this bar, saying that therapy showed him how to open up, but because of that, he also learned how to cope with his trauma and believe in himself more. And through that personal growth, evidently, he now realizes he doesn't give a F. And here's where the verse gets dope, because he does the entire rest of the verse carrying alliterations with the sound of gem or gen. Really, it's gen he's carrying throughout the entire rest of this verse. So he raps, the two-time Gemini with the genocide. I'm generous, however you want it, I'll be the gentle kind. That's why, little Easter egg, if you guys didn't notice, I opened up this video with my own gen alliterations. But Kendrick continues, gentlemen and gangsters connect, the agenda of mine. Move guys up out of here, this stuff gets gentrified. Of course, we know that this is Kendrick's agenda, right? Connecting the gangsters and the gentlemen, right? We saw this on the pop-out stage, where he brought out everyone from his hometown to connect in a symbol of unity, with the purpose of, as he's rapping here, to move guys up out of here. This carries a double meaning again, because not only is he talking about moving his people out of the projects into better living conditions, he's also talking about moving guys out of the rap game. Earlier in the verse, he's talking about hip-hop being dead and him being the one to save it. Here he's talking about cleansing the culture. Then he raps, heavy jeans like Genevieve's. This is a dope bar because he's talking not only about denim jeans, but also comparing himself to a lyrical assassin. The fabric that jeans are made of was originated in the city of Geneva from the Genovese people. But the Genovese crime family is also an Italian-American mafia family. So when he says heavy jeans like Genevieve's, he's not just talking about the actual denim jeans and where they originated from. He's talking about having heavy jeans, like packing heavy in his jeans and like his jeans being heavy, his DNA, his genes, comparing that to the Genovese family. Also continuing this scheme with all the gene or gen words in the rhymes, right? Then he raps, I drop your Pentagon. Now, there was an article called The Battle Over the Pentagon Papers, which was written by Genevieve Stutterford. Remember, again, the bar before this, he says heavy jeans like Genevieve's. Then he says, I drop your Pentagon, referring to an article written by a Genevieve. The article was about the events that surrounded the release of the Pentagon Papers that revealed a series of government decisions that escalated U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War. They were obviously hidden from the public, and here Kendrick is saying he's going to drop your Pentagon. He's going to expose the info on you. Then he raps, I show up at your gender reveal and tell them give me mine. I can't help but think this is a callback to Meet the Grams, where he reveals the gender of an alleged second child that Drake was hiding. And of course, this is on a song with Pusha T, and Pusha T was the first one to reveal Drake's son. Kendrick continues the child wordplay, rapping, I son guys, I am the general, where my gin and juice? Again, Pusha was the one who exposed Drake's son. Kendrick did the same in his beef with Drake in 2024. On Meet the Grams, Kendrick not only makes reference to another child Drake is hiding, but also tells Drake's son that Kendrick could be a better father to him. On the Hard Part 6, Drake was talking about, I'm a war general seasoned in preparation. Here Kendrick is saying, I am the general. On Drake's Family Matters, he says, we know that you like to put gin in your juice. Here Kendrick is saying, where's my gin and juice? Ironically, at the same time, again, you have to remember, this verse was recorded in the summer of 2024, right after the beef, right? This was recorded before Whacked Out Murals was released, where Kendrick said, Snoop posted tailor-made, I prayed it was the edibles. Here he's talking about being the general. He's also talking about the West being his, and he's saying, where's my gin and juice? We know that Snoop Dogg was the one who passed Kendrick the chain at the House of Blues, essentially passing him the torch to carry on the reign for the West Coast. This possibly being a subliminal aimed at Snoop Dogg as well, since he was upset that Snoop had shared tailor-made. Kendrick here is saying, I'm the general, I am the one leading the West Coast, leading hip-hop, where's my gin and juice? A reference to Snoop Dogg's breakout solo hit, Gin and Juice. Kendrick continues, every song in the book of Genesis, let the sonics boom. Genesis being the first book in the Bible and the book that outlines the basis of which God creates the heavens and the earth, as well as the fundamental philosophies of Christianity. Kendrick is saying all of his songs are in Genesis. Going back again to the beginning of the verse, where he's talking about the talents being God sent, but him sending people back to the cosmics. Here he's saying his songs are in the book of Genesis, and then he's saying, let the sonics boom. The sonics is in reference to sound, right? Here he's telling you, let his music boom, let his sonics boom, but these same sonics also booming people back into the cosmics. And again, remember that other bar where he rapped that he's putting his profits back into Rakim. Not just Rakim, the God MC, but also investing his profits, the profit, into rocking him. People want the tea on me? Well, here's the ginger root. I generate residuals. Get off my genitals. And we know that throughout his battle with Drake was out here trying to pay for information on Kendrick, right? Information that he thought was the red button on his song Family Matters. Of course, on Whacked Out Murals, Kendrick rapped, people in my city couldn't entertain the homeboy, promising bank transactions and even Bitcoin. If that money got in the hands of a crash dummy, it could jeopardize my family, burden the ones who love me. Here he's talking about, people want the tea on me? Well, here's the ginger root. Now, a ginger root is literally the stem of the ginger plant that can be used in tea as sort of like a spice or a medicine. He's saying, let's get to the root inherently of what this is all about. And of course, it's a little spicy, right? Ginger is spicy. And it's raw. This is the raw truth here. Kendrick continues, they said I couldn't reach Gen Z, you effing dickheads. You must be full of that ginseng. Here comes the jinx. Ginseng is another plant with fleshy roots that's used as an herbal supplement, just like he was talking about with ginger a couple bars before this, the ginger root. And in terms of him connecting with Gen Z, again, you have to remember this verse was recorded in June or July of 2024. At around the same time, Kendrick goes to the Compton College graduation to deliver a speech where he's talking about the potential within this generation, within Gen Z.
It's time that we change the narratives. You know, some people tell us this generation, they don't have what it takes. Gen Z, we talk about it all day. They try to pull us down and say we don't know what we're doing. They wrong, though. You know why? Because not only y'all have what it takes, but y'all have something even bigger. Y'all have the heart. Y'all have the courage to be independent thinkers. Independent thinkers. It's nothing more valuable than that. Y'all can go out here and tell and express your thoughts and say it with conviction and passion and stand on it and be unapologetic about it.
So here he's saying, of course I could connect with Gen Z. And then he continues, ain't genetics been synthetic, screaming they genius. Now this, I can't put words into Kendrick's mouth, but this has to be a subliminal at Kanye West, because a couple years before this, he had a documentary produced on him called Genius, and the way Kendrick raps the word genius is exactly how you would pronounce that movie title name, Genius. And he's saying these aren't genetics, they've always been synthetic, and they're screaming that they're a genius. Kanye, since the beginning of time, has been screaming that he's a genius. Kendrick is taking that mask off, right? Because of all the antics we've seen Kanye a part of over the last few years. And most notably, again, this is a song with Pusha T. Pusha T being very vocal about the fact that Kanye's been fake with him. Kanye has been spiraling to a place of no return. Their relationship can't be repaired. Kendrick is echoing the same sentiments as his collaborator on this song, saying that Kanye has been synthetic. He's been fake this entire time. Him screaming throughout his entire career that he's genetically a genius, it's all been fake. And he doubles down on that, rapping, a finger waved, they all fall. These guys are Jenga. Jenga is a game you play where you stack a bunch of little wooden bricks on top of each other until one brick essentially makes the entire tower crumble down. The same way that these guys are fake, they're frail, one little brick and they all tumble. Their foundation is not built upon solid bricks. They all fall. False prophets, like J. Cole said on that song, referring to Kanye West himself. And earlier in this verse, Kendrick calling out the Judases, the false prophets that let him down, saying he puts his profit into Rakim, the God MC, as he's saying that hip-hop is dead and he's here to revitalize it. And he continues this religious God imagery, finishing off what we've heard of the verse so far, rapping, God gave me light, a good year full of, and then it just cuts off. We don't know the rest of the words so far. But already this verse sounds insane. And when you look at this right here, I mean, I searched up GE. And off just that alone, Kendrick uses GE words that start with GE or have GE in them, 21 times in this verse. It's all gen. And there's a couple other words here that you can see, like ginger or ginseng or gin and juice or jinx or Jenga. It's all an insane amount of alliterations off of the sound of gen or gin. And Punch from TDE had pointed this out. Again, this is a collaboration with Pusha T. Kendrick is repeatedly using words that say gen. And back on his last collaboration with Pusha T, Nostalgia, Kendrick repeatedly uses imagery with the word 10. This Pusha T collab is gen. Last one was 10. On Nostalgia, he raps, when I was 10, back when 9 ounces had got you 10, and 9 times out of 10, guys don't pay attention, and when it's tension in the air, 9s come with extensions. Just an insane little Easter egg, and the best part of all this is that you might be saying to yourself, right, like, he's not really dissing Drake here. Why would UMG be so scared of Drake that they would want to censor this verse? What are we missing here? Well, don't forget that even though we already heard almost a minute of Kendrick rapping on this song, we have not heard the entire verse. People who have heard the entire verse are very much implying that there is a lot more to it once we get the final version. Mike Chehade, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that name, he had tweeted out saying, just wait until you hear what K-Dot says. It will definitely blow your mind. And that was in response to Busby tweeting out saying, it's not even the whole verse, LOL. I understand why Aubrey and his people tried to block it. He also retweeted a tweet saying, that wasn't even the verse that the Clipse was waiting on. And as far as who Mike Chehade is, he is a creative director, an A&R, based in Los Angeles, and he had a hand in the recent Coyote album. Coyote is an LA-based group who had actually dissed Joey Badman when he came out at the beginning of the year saying there's too much West Coast D-licking. So, of course, this guy's tied into the industry. He, I guess, is implying he has heard the full album because the Clipse have played the album in full. I believe it was also Rob Markman who had said he's heard the full album already. So, apparently, there's more to it. Now, a lot of people, kind of including myself at first, were upset that the Clipse was kind of spoiling a lot of these massive moments from their album weeks before the album even released, right? We already got Ace Trumpets, where Pusha T's going at Kanye. We got the GQ interview, where he lays out a lot of his thoughts from some of the music on why he's talking about certain artists. Then, of course, we got So Be It, where he's talking about Travis Scott. I have a full video breaking down Pusha T's relationship with all the Good Music roster, if you guys want to check that out. But yeah, there was a lot of information revealed throughout this rollout, and I believe the album's supposed to only have 13 songs. As of right now, we've already heard like basically 3 full songs, right? A little bit of this Kendrick verse is missing, but we already heard the Pusha and Malice verses on it, and we heard the 2 singles. Now, people don't realize, like, it was only around 2015 that artists started releasing these surprise albums where you just get an album, no singles beforehand, no previews of the album. And they're upset that, you know, even with this short track list, why are we already getting so much music and so many of the biggest moments of the album before the album releases, right? People were building anticipation for this Kendrick verse for almost a year now. And now we're getting it just previewed out in an album listening party. Like, doesn't it seem a little too exposed? Well, you have to realize a couple things. First of all, the Clipse, they're old school, right? Like, everything about this rollout, it feels great and it feels old school. Everything from the magazine articles where they're going at other rappers, actually revealing what their thoughts are behind the music, giving us the album artwork in advance, the features in advance, singles and music videos in advance. This is how an old school album rollout used to work when you had to work the album before actually releasing it. Because, of course, the label had to print copies, send them to stores, and build anticipation so that all the copies they sent to the record stores can actually sell out. The Clipse are doing things the same way they used to do back in the day, where you had to build the buzz, the anticipation for the project before it released, by teasing different songs off the project. Now, I don't even think we've gotten the highlight of Kendrick's verse or the features in general off this project yet. Again, there's rumors that Jay-Z could be on this thing, Nas could be on this thing. The best is yet to come. And in terms of the actual songs off the project, I don't think we've heard far from the best songs. In the GQ interview, they were talking about how there's one song where Malice and Pusha T open up about losing their parents. And you have to remember, they put an immense amount of care and quality into the music they release, right? So yeah, we've got some amazing music from them so far, but I have no doubt, given their track record with Pharrell, even as recently as Pusha T's last album, It's Almost Dry, which was majority produced by Pharrell, I have no doubt that the best is yet to come, and they're saving that for the actual project. This is how a traditional rollout used to work, right? You used to drop singles. Even with his last album, It's Almost Dry, in 2022, Pusha T had put out 3 singles before the album was released, and there was only, I believe, 12 songs on that track list. So we got 3 out of 12 songs before the project was released. But again, that's how things used to work in the industry back in the day. So I kind of like that they're doing it like this. When it comes to movies, I'm usually not the type that cares about spoilers. I don't know why. Call me a psycho, whatever you want. But when it comes to music, I do like the anticipation factor. Like, I've been waiting for this Kendrick verse since they announced it last year. And to hear it in like little bits, it's a bit disappointing, but the verse sounds great. And because we haven't heard the full thing, it only builds anticipation for what the final product will sound like in that full album quality. If anything, it just builds anticipation. And I love everything else about this rollout so far. Everything from the album cover, designed by Cause. I think it's a dope cover. I think that the interviews beforehand, giving some insight into what's going on behind the creative process of everything, and the people that you're going up against, right? The Travises, the Kanyes, like, be direct like that. I love that. People who are hating on that are saying Pusha T is using this for buzz for his project. They don't realize that Pusha T has never cared about record sales. If he did, that So Be It record where he's dissing Travis Scott, he would have put that on streaming platforms for it to climb up the charts due to the hype of him dissing Travis. He didn't release that on streaming platforms. This is for the sake of the art. This is for the sake of the essence of what they started. You guys don't remember that back in 2006, 2007, Pusha T and Lil Wayne were going back and forth trading shots, not just in records, but in magazine interviews. They're doing the same thing here. They're bringing that nostalgia factor back. And they're bringing back real competitive spirit within hip-hop. Same thing that Kendrick did last year, right? Like, you want to do these backhanded things like Travis playing the Meltdown verse and then dropping it with the Drake verse. Jim Jones talking this crap in interviews. Like Pusha T said, right? Like, he wants to know how I'm feeling. I'm going to tell you exactly how I am feeling in the bars in this song. And it's laced with immaculate production, rapping at an extremely high level. It's great to see Malice back in the mix too, because of course Pusha T brings in that vivid imagery of the lifestyle behind, you know, a rich luxury drug dealer. Malice comes in on the more emotional, introspective side. So it's a great balance that's been really missing from a lot of Pusha solo music. I'm very excited to see what this project sounds like. I have no doubt it's going to be fire. But let me know what you guys think. Did this Kendrick verse live up to the hype? Are you excited for the project? Will this be the best Clipse album we've gotten so far? Let me know what you guys think, and I will catch you in the next one.